Our reading this morning is called Healing, and these are the words of the Reverend Adam Dyer, a queer black man who serves one of our Unitarian Universalist congregations, First Parish in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He offers, "Don't speak to me of healing racism, or wounded souls, or the painful hurt, until you are willing to feel the scars of my great-great-grandmother Laurie's back. Don't speak to me of values or justice or righting wrongs until you are able to feel the heartache of my great-grandfather Graham, whose father may have been his master. Don't speak to me of equity or opportunity or the common good until you're able to hear the fear from my grandmother May as the only black woman in her college. Don't speak to me of passion or longing or standing on the side of love until you know the shame felt by my grandmother Edwina, mocked by teachers for the curve of her back. Don't speak to me of together or understanding or empathy until you know my rage as a young actor hearing the direction to be more black, more male. The pain you are trying to heal has no name. This pain you speak of has no story. It is anonymous, vague, and empty. Don't speak to me of healing, for I heal the second I am ripped apart, my wounds self-suture, and like the clever creature I am, I just grow new legs to outrun the pain ever faster. It is something I have had to practice for generations that feel like an eternity. So please don't speak to me of healing, because you cannot know what healing means until you know the hurt." You cannot know what healing means until you know the hurt, implores Reverend Adam Dyer. I add that we can only know the hurt when we know one another's stories. And so I offer our stories today, tales of Black Unitarians, Black Universalists, and Black Unitarian Universalists, and the institutions that, despite the beliefs we share, continue to keep us out. I offer these stories because, as Joe Tyler, an expert in the field of storytelling and a professor at Penn State, once said, "The shortest distance between two people is a story." Today, I pray with you that we shorten the distance between the impact of our institutional history and ourselves. That we shorten the distance between whom we say we are and whom we wish to be. By sharing our stories, we can become more whole and together write a different ending to a chapter that began long before us and is likely to continue after our lives are complete. Now, much of the research that I did for the stories I will offer today comes to us from the 2011 text, "Darkening the Doorways: Black Trailblazers and Missed Opportunities in Unitarian Universalism," edited by the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed. The text is the most comprehensive of its kind, and its many authors provide nuance and personal insight into the many ways the failure of institutional Unitarianism, Universalism, and Unitarian Universalism in the USA, and often the failure of particularly powerful white Unitarians, Universalists, and white UUs, has compromised the multicultural, racial, and ethnically diverse beloved community we seek to be. with their respective messages that there is a oneness in God that transcends all physical boundaries, and that God is loving and punishes no one simply for being alive, Unitarianism and Universalism were popular forms of Christianity among the descendants of enslaved and formerly indentured Africans in the USA as early as the late 18th century. Now, jumping ahead slightly to the late 19th century, I introduce Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who was born to free black parents in 1825, the same year the American Unitarian Association was formed. An abolitionist, writer, lecturer, academic, wife, and mother, she traveled the South on a self-funded lecture tour from 1867 to 1871. She was broke. She was working for some money. She held religious affiliation in both the African Methodist Episcopal, AME, and Unitarian churches. And notably, although pew rental payments, before we had pledges to congregations, Unitarian congregations in particular used to rent pews. So families would rent their pews, and that's how a church made its money for the year. So notably, although pew rental payments document that Harper was a member of the Unitarian Church on Chestnut Street in Philadelphia, now First Unitarian Church in Philadelphia, from 1870 until her death in 1911. For reasons still unknown, Harper failed to write about or otherwise document her relationship to Unitarianism, writes the Reverend Kiama Rahman. Harper's funeral services were held at the Unitarian Church in Philadelphia after her death on February 22nd, 1911. And I often wonder about the Reverend Rahman's statement above. For reasons still unknown, Harper failed to write about or otherwise document her relationship to Unitarianism. Despite knowing about Unitarianism for most of her life and joining a Unitarian church after her friend Peter H. Clark, an equally notable abolitionist and educator, joined one in Cincinnati, Ohio, she never wrote about it. Yet we cannot know healing without knowing the hurt. And I cannot begin to imagine what did or did not translate in the 19th and early 20th century Unitarianism for Watkins Harper. I can't imagine what didn't line up. She found herself destitute at multiple times in her life, so I can't imagine what didn't line up for her. All I know is that maybe there was pain that Worship With Us spoke to for her, that maybe Witness With Us as Unitarians never did. After all, even Unitarians were proponents of the American eugenics movement and its quest for racialized moral purity, believing that black people were inferior, but nonetheless still human. I wonder how our faith would practice justice now had the life of Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who spoke movingly and worked tirelessly for the improvement of both black and white lives, been the moral standard of the American Unitarianism of her time. I wonder how we would practice justice differently now. But I know, or at least I imagine, that maybe, just maybe, she and generations of black Unitarians, black Universalists, and black Unitarian Universalists sang when they were up against these obstacles. And I hope they sang something like this. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round Our second story comes from Universalism. In 1889, Joseph Jordan became the first African American ordained as a Universalist minister. Now, interestingly enough, he had already organized a Universalist congregation and day school for black children in 1887 in Norfolk, Virginia. He had previously served as a Baptist minister and preacher from 1880 until that time, but he felt called to Universalism after reading that it viewed God as not partial to the white oppressors who were instilling segregation and subjugation in the post-Civil War South. Rather, Universalism viewed both the oppressed and the oppressor as holy and worthy of the promise of salvation. Following his ordination, the Universalist General Convention welcomed the congregation in Norfolk into fellowship. Jordan and congregation members taught up to 100 black children weekly in the day school, and Sunday evening worship attracted as many as 35 worshipers. Occasionally, even white Universalists that did not have a congregation of their own in the town attended. With the growth of the school, Jordan began to work with Universalist missionary Quillen Shin, who also founded our camp Ferry Beach in Maine, to expand Universalist youth ministry to colored people. Like the congregation and school itself, however, that vision ultimately failed. Joseph Jordan died at 59 in 1901, and the congregation and school closed in 1906. Attempts to reopen the congregation in subsequent years also failed. After the death of his wife and son in 1902, Jordan's bequest to the Universalist General Convention went to support the growth of Universalism in Suffolk, Virginia, which was originally a mission of the Norfolk congregation. The Suffolk congregation remained vibrant until it closed in 1984. Among issues that plagued Jordan and his congregation were the socially progressive ideals of Universalism itself. It created issues with the institutions of the black community of the South and among the white leadership of the Universalist General Convention, who struggled to live up to this very vision. Subsidies from the national organization kept the congregation and school running, but the church kept losing key lay people, because Universalism simultaneously attracted people from the countryside into the cities of the South and then funneled them into the larger and more liberal cities of the North, where the faith had deeper roots and more social currency. I wonder how our faith would be different had we realized the vision of Black Universalist youth ministry at the turn of the 20th century. For me, it's bittersweet knowing that every project that Joseph Jordan started thrived for some time, but ultimately shuttered. The lessons for Unitarian Universalism as a whole are clear in the story of Jordan. If we continue to fail to live up to our vision of being the diverse people we say we are, our years as public intellectuals and public theologians are numbered. If we continue to fail to live up to our vision, the amount of time we have to cast that vision is limited and narrowed. And yet I know we sang. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. The early 20th century in Unitarian Universalism witnessed drastic changes far exceeding the consolidation in 1961 of the Universalist Church in America and the American Unitarian Association to form the Unitarian Universalist Association. Dozens of other Black pioneers in the traditions of our faith, each of whom I rightfully acknowledge deserve their own sermon, but I have a time limit today. Those pioneers found their way into, through, and sometimes all the way back out of Unitarian Universalism. The Reverend Joseph Fletcher Jordan and Mary Jordan take over the Suffolk, Virginia congregation, the Universalist mission, in 1904. Maria Louise Baldwin, co-organizer of the National Association for Colored Women's Clubs, joins the Unitarian Church of the Disciples in Boston in 1907. The Universalist General Convention declines to help African Americans in Rusk, Oklahoma, organize a church in 1911. In 1914, the Reverend Egbert Ethelred Brown returns to Jamaica to organize a Unitarian church after graduating from the Meadville Theological School, now Meadville Lombard. He will later return to the U.S. to found a church in Harlem popular with Black socialists in 1920. The American Unitarian Association, in their infinite wisdom, removes the Reverend Ethelred Brown from fellowship in 1929 and only reinstates him 6 years later after the threat of a lawsuit from the American Civil Liberties Union. In the 1930s, the American Unitarian Association president Frederick May Elliott, makes excuses for failing to find the Reverend Jeffrey Worthington Campbell a settled ministry. The Reverend Campbell holds fellowship with both the Universalists and the Unitarians. The Universalists attack his sister and brother-in-law, Marguerite Campbell and Francis Davis, for having an interracial marriage in their national newsletter, The Christian Leader. Marguerite will spend 33 years working for the Universalist Church in America and later the Unitarian Universalist Association. In the 1940s through consolidation in 1961, the Universalist Church in America and the American Unitarian Association continue to have strained relationships with Black leaders, church integration efforts, and representation of Black people in professional ministry. Even as both denominations make public statements about equality and inclusion that their youth organizations take to heart. The 1960s is a time of fervor and potential inside and out of the Unitarian Universalist Association, with significant events surrounding Black empowerment. 1968 through 1969 highlights the rift between Black UUs and the seemingly unresponsive white leadership structure, as Black UUs are promised $1 million for organizing that has still never been completely funded. The 1970s usher in an exodus of African Americans from Unitarian Universalism, as well as a financially strained UUA. I know correlation isn't causality, but this issue goes largely unaddressed until the UUA board commissions an institutional racism audit in 1980. The findings of the audit lead to the creation of an Office of Black Concerns at the UUA, changes in recruitment practices for positions at the UUA to attract more Black leadership, which work, a full report on the Black empowerment controversy, or as the twice former UUA president, the Reverend Bill Sinkford, has called it, a fit of white entitlement, is published by the Commission on Appraisal, and in time, this audit leads to the creation of the Beyond Categorical Thinking training, African American Unitarian Universalist Ministries, which later leads to the creation of the Diverse and Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, or DRUM. It creates Jubilee World Anti-Racism Trainings, the Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Committee, and a collective for youth and young adult anti-racism training. By 2007, many of these programs and positions would be defunded or rendered defunct. And in the current day, earlier this year, we were down to 3 people of color, not black people, 3 people of color in first-level leadership positions at our Unitarian Universalist Association. There is so much work to be done. But I know we sang. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. And so we arrive at the current day where we have tried so many times we have planted an explicitly black or intentionally multicultural and multi-ethnic UU congregation, and the social and economic consequences of systemic and institutional racism, as well as racist attitudes among individual UUs, we know this system collectively as white supremacy, have caused these congregations and their vibrant ministries to fail time and time and time again. Nonetheless, the founding of Abundant Love UU Ministries in the West End of Atlanta gives me great joy. It was initially a dream of the Reverend Duncan Teague while he was in seminary. Abundant Love has materialized into a multicultural and multiracial core planning team who is growing and beginning to create a place of radical acceptance and of love. Their website proclaims, "We are people of all ages, people of many backgrounds, and people of many beliefs. We create spirituality and community beyond boundaries, working for more justice and more love in our own lives and in the world." To date, the project, along with other UU mission partners, has raised more than $15,000 toward the establishment of permanent ministry that will serve the predominantly black faith seekers of the West End of Atlanta. Can I get another amen? Abundant Love is designed to address the need for liberal religion in African American communities and black communities that we have seen is in part the result of centuries of intentional neglect by institutional Unitarianism, institutional Universalism, and institutional Unitarian Universalism, and by some of our disproportionately white membership. The Abundant Love Project offers yet another opportunity to pave a different path forward, to write a different ending to the chapter on our journey to the beloved community, where we truly welcome all seeking wholeness and all who are seeking justice. The most recent entry on the blog for Abundant Love is dated September 30th, 2017, and announces a dinner fundraiser that was held at the end of October. "We will start community activities and worship services soon," reads the congregational About page of the website. But soon seems so long ago against the racist landscape of our past trials and our current tribulations as a denomination. Maybe now we know the hurt. Indeed, now we begin to heal. And we sing. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching into freedom land.